Ederson or Hjulmand? Who should Manchester United sign this summer as their Baleba alternative in Ruben Amorim's midfield? Well, my answer would be Ederson. And that's because whilst I do think both players are ready for a move to a bigger side, Ederson would best replicate the traits that Baleba would bring to the system: acceleration over shorter distances in the press, sustained pace over longer distances on the recovery, and powerful ball carrying ability out of pressure and through open space in central areas. Now, Hjulmand may offer tidier passing, being a better retainer of the ball, but I think that Ederson offers the complete skill set that Ruben Amorim's midfield double pivot requires, both in and out of possession. And when we get into the finer details, looking at the specific roles that they play, how they would complement different partners, and how their skill sets would map onto this United system, it becomes obvious that one player fits the system perfectly, and the other one doesn't specialise in the necessary attributes that United should be targeting in a central midfielder this summer. One of them provides positional flexibility, which would offer Amorim tactical fluidity, whilst the other one has a more limited skill set, which would instead limit tactical fluidity. Ederson is already playing like an elite level hybrid midfielder with the potential to do even more, which I'm going to explain later on in the video, but first I'm going to analyse why exactly I prefer Ederson to Hjulmand, breaking it down with these three questions. So first of all, what does Ederson offer in possession that Baleba also would, and Hjulmand doesn't? Secondly, who of United's current central midfield options would fit best next to Ederson in the midfield double pivot, but also if United were to move to more of a three-man system in the future, how would he function in a midfield three? And thirdly, why do I say that Ederson could already be considered a top-tier box-to-box or holding midfielder, and how do I think he could evolve further, potentially moving into the back three and actually offering the same, if not more, than he currently does in central midfield? But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season, with OK Jersey also allowing you to pick up high quality football shirts from just £15, plus free shipping across Europe for all orders over £45. They sent me over these new release alternative Manchester United jerseys from this season, as well as a long sleeved retro home shirt from the 92-93 season, with Cantona 7 on the back, alongside this Nuno Gomes Benfica shirt from the 97-98 season as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout, you'll get a discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. So let's start with first principles. What was the tactical function of the role that Baleba would have played in Ruben Amorim's double pivot? Well, it's not as a deeper line playmaker setting the tempo, nor would you describe him as a classic number 6 in isolation, as he can be described as a dual phase disruptor, a player who's able to receive the ball under pressure, shrug it off and then drive forward into the space. The objective of this Baleba role wouldn't be just to circulate and retain possession, but is instead to break the lines of play and progress the ball forward using his legs, body or his passing. And this brings us on to the first tactical difference between the two players, as Ederson mirrors that profile, whilst Hjulmand doesn't and actually might be the opposite. See, in possession, Ederson thrives when the game opens up. He doesn't need options ahead or even the perfect spacing. He can receive the ball in the half turn, shield the ball with his upper body strength, and then carry it forward powerfully. And it's not just reckless running with the ball, but deliberate space exploitation. When the opposition midfielders push high and Ruben Amorim's back three bait the press, if Ederson is able to turn his presser, or even just receive the ball goal side of the opposition's midfield line, then he has that Baleba-esque ability to take advantage of the space by carrying the ball forward at speed. And it's that sort of verticality which is going to give United structure breaking transitions. Hjulmand, by contrast, is more of a stabiliser. He's composed, clean and controlled in tight zones, particularly with short bounce passes under pressure. But the key difference is that he doesn't really create or exploit space. Instead, he manages it. He's not really a Carlos Baleba type who's going to draw in the pressure and then break the lines with a disguised turn or a third man run ahead of play like Ederson can. He'll keep the ball circulating efficiently, but he's not someone who's going to be breaking the game open as Ederson would. And that matters because in this system, the midfield is only a two-man engine. If one holds, the other has to be able to break forward, not solely relying on their passing. And this is effective in different ways in different phases of play. See, when United are building out under pressure in their defensive third, Ederson's starting position can enable him to use his physicality and athleticism as a weapon, either starting wide of the central centre-back on the edge of the box or alongside him in more of a double pivot, Instead of being someone who can be easily tracked and closely man-to-man pressed, Ederson is able to break away from his pressing player and into the space behind, essentially Fernandinho with afterburners. If he picks his moment right and then bursts forward, before then being found with a line-breaking pass, he's then able to burst through the midfield across the halfway line, being the instigator of the artificial counter-attack, which with a front three containing the likes of Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko, could now allow United to create a 4v3 attacking situation because of Ederson's pace over longer distances from deeper areas has allowed him to break away from his presser and get goal side. Hjulmand on the other hand certainly doesn't have this kind of athleticism. He plays more like a Zubimendi. He certainly can twist and turn out of pressure and circulate the ball efficiently when he receives it under pressure on the edge of his own box, but he's not the type of central midfielder who's going to be able to punish the opposition when their defensive and midfield lines get stretched and there's space in behind. The ball progresses sure, but Hjulmand doesn't, and so on his own he's not able to hurt you in the same way that Ederson can, and in this system you need midfielders who have the ability to progress the ball forward at speed on their own, and that's why Ederson's ability to turn out of pressure and powerfully carry the ball through the space in the centre enables him to punish any disjointed presses that United come up against. He gives you that vertical chaos, and whilst Hjulmand does give you control, that can become kind of sterile and ineffective as a ball progressing method against certain opposition. But this brings us on to the second question. If either were signed, who would be United's best midfield pairing alongside them? Well, it comes down to stylistic fits and what the two players in the double pivot offer as a combination, and this is where tactical systems often get misunderstood, because it's not solely about who is the best player, but who fits together better. In Amorim's 3-4-3 system, the midfield double pivot is crucial and non-negotiable. There's no third man to protect you, and so I would argue that the stylistic balance between the two players actually matters more to the overall effectiveness than their individual talent. So who does Ederson pair best with? Well, we'll start with Ugarte. So if you want to focus on pressing high up the pitch, either from the opposition's build-up phase or during a counter-press, then having Bruno Fernandes on the right side of the front three, playing more of a playmaking role, and having the wing-backs push up aggressively to apply pressure when the opposition works a ball down their side, then I think that Ederson and Ugarte is the perfect pairing. Stylistically, it's a classic stopper and cover setup. Ugarte jumps forward vertically, whilst Ederson stays deeper, looking to shuttle across the pitch horizontally in order to break up any attacks that are able to bypass the United press. Whilst Ugarte initiates the chaos, Ederson absorbs and recovers. Tactically, it's like having a pit bull and a Rottweiler. One bites first, whilst the other one finishes the job if the first one doesn't. But what about against sides where United need more creative output from deeper areas, and instead use Bruno Fernandes there? Well, Ederson arguably becomes even more essential. Bruno, like Ugarte, is instinctive and aggressive with his pressure, and in possession, in order to get the best out of his creativity, you do want to give him more license to roam into deeper and more advanced positions. But whilst this does maximise his best attributes, in a midfield double pivot in the 4-3-3, it can be a risk. If you put Bruno in a midfield double pivot without a positionally disciplined and efficient space covering partner, the pressing structure can collapse and the midfield open up. And so this is why Ederson is perfect stylistically for the double pivot, whilst Hjulmand's skill set doesn't really align with what United need right now. The Dane is certainly tidy in deeper zones, but he lacks the physicality and explosiveness over short and longer distances to cover the gaps that Bruno and Ugarte may leave. However, Ederson has this in abundance. He can defend wide channels, sweep up counterattacks, and also drop into the back line when needed as well, whilst also being more than comfortable and highly effective when United are looking to play out of pressure in the build-up phase. But what about with Casemiro and Mainu? Well, here's where the profiles could clash. As both in and out of possession, Casemiro and Ederson do prefer deeper zones, but Casemiro is a lot more static, less mobile, and more stationary than the vertical Ederson. Now, Mainu would be a slightly better stylistic fit, providing a bit more verticality with his ball carrying, and being able to make more vertical movements between the lines than Casemiro, but neither would provide the elite level short burst acceleration when pushing out vertically in the press that the likes of Ugarte, Kamara, Thuram and Ederson would give you, whilst also not providing the pace over longer distances, meaning that they aren't going to be as effective on the recovery in the rest defence when the opposition looks to counter with a quick transitional attack. So when focusing on the structure of the midfield double pivot and how it relates to the system as a whole, I think Ederson and Ugarte for certain games would be a very good combination, with a more creative double pivot of Ederson alongside Bruno Fernandes also going to be the most effective combination for certain games when United are dominating possession, with a greater focus on what the double pivot can offer in possession. But this now brings us on to the third question of why I think Ederson could already be considered elite either as a ball winner or a box-to-box midfielder, and how he could evolve his game tactically to potentially play in a back three. See, under Gasperini at Atalanta over the past few seasons, Ederson has been playing as what is essentially a box-to-box midfielder, but in the defensive third when Atalanta are defending, he often drops in as a temporary centre-back, or even dropping back in there if the opposition counter quickly, filling in for the Atalanta centre-backs who may be caught high up the pitch. Now in the middle third, dropping back into the defensive third, Ederson's very good at tracking runners, making underlapping runs down the channels or moving wide to apply pressure, being incredibly assertive and composed with how he's able to use his physical strength, either in physical duels or in standing or sliding tackles. But he also offers something in the final third that most ball-winning central midfielders don't, and that's his ability to arrive late with runs from deep, carry the ball into the final third himself, and also score from range with a thunderous strike. And so currently he could be described as either a box-to-box or a ball-winning midfielder, and I think in the future he could maybe be moved backwards into more of a libero position, playing a similar role to David Luiz in Antonio Conte's 3-4-3 in the 16-17 season, being almost a hybrid between a defensive midfielder and a traditional centre-back. The advantage of using a player like Ederson in this central centre-back role as opposed to a traditional centre-back is obvious. Compared to De Ligt or Maguire, Ederson's going to be far more press resistant when he's receiving the ball on the edge of his own box in the build-up phase, being able to turn or drive out of pressure, or even make a third man run from deep in behind the opposition's midfield line. From a defensive point of view, I actually think when Ederson drops into the back line, his reading of the game and positioning is one of his best attributes, constantly being aware of where the runs are coming from around him and positioning himself accordingly to make an interception. But the other benefit with using him either as a central centre-back or in one of the wide centre-back positions is that he's got the sort of blistering acceleration and pace that makes him ideal for playing a covering role, sweeping up passes in behind the back line, with his pace across longer distances making him far better suited to playing in a high back line compared with De Ligt and definitely compared with Maguire. And in possession in the middle third, he's also got the long range and incisive passing ability to be a significant ball progressing threat from either the central centre-back or the wide centre-back positions, improving United's ability to play through the centre or switch play out to one of the flanks, whilst also being very good at joining the attack in the right-sided channel, having excellent vision when it comes to playing passes into the box in the final third, and so he could definitely suit a wide centre-back role as well. And so in conclusion, yes, he'll cost between 55 to 65 million, but considering how unique his skill set is, as well as Baleba's price in comparison, I do think his valuation is around 60 million, but considering Hjulmand will also probably cost around 40 to 50 million pounds this summer, even though he would cost maybe 10 to 15 million pounds more, I do think that Ederson is much better value for money because of what he offers in terms of his skill set, being more complete both in and out of possession, as well as providing the sort of pace and power that is incredibly hard to find in central midfielders, with his varied skill set also providing a lot of tactical and positional flexibility, both permanently and temporarily when he's dropping into the back three. So let me know if it wasn't Baleba, if it wasn't Walton, who would be your next best alternative? Who do you prefer out of Ederson and Morten Hjulmand? And if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Alandis at checkout for a 10% discount, so I'll leave a link in the description and in the comments section below.